Thomas Partey, maybe on his way to Saudi, maybe on his way out of Arsenal. What is your take on this, Brandon? Because I've seen some gooners who are buzzing, and I've some that are absolutely fuming that he could be leaving. Talk to me.
Well, firstly, let me tell you, all the ones that are absolutely fuming are because they don't. They're fuming because they don't trust the football club to replace him properly. That's the reality of it. I'm in the middle of this one. Like, I'm dead in the centre, because I feel like if you're going to move Thomas Partey on, now is the right time to do it, because he's got 2 years left on his contract. He's on £200,000 per week. You're not going to extend the contract of Thomas Partey when he's extremely unreliable and injury prone in the big moments for Arsenal. And we always complain as a fan base about the fact that we their contract down. So I also understand why Arsenal are looking to maybe move him on this summer. And you're going to have to replace him long term anyway, right? On top of that, though, I am a little bit sceptical because I look at the fact that we've got Champions League football this season. And if you look at our squad, there's only 3 or 4 players in our squad that have got Champions League experience, and Thomas Partey is one of them. So you're taking away the Champions League experience from the squad in order to potentially bring in somebody like a Lavia, who's being touted around, right? Who, let's get it right. He is a very good player from what we see last season. However, he's only 19. He's still a kid. Yes, he's an up-and-coming talent, but he's had one good season in the Premier League, and you can't kind of guarantee what you're going to get out of him next season. And that's not saying that I think that he's going to fall off a cliff or anything like that. But is he going to offer us the same qualities that Thomas Partey does? Probably not. And I know we've got Declan Rice potentially coming in as well. But I just look on it and I feel like if it was me, I mean, this is a tough decision to make, you know. Do you move Thomas Partey on and get some money for him, potentially bring in a replacement? Or do you keep him around for his experience, but say to him, look, you're going to be a rotational player? Because I kind of feel like that's where we need to move to with Thomas Partey, purely and simply because of his unavailability at times and his injury record. And we see with Arsenal, we can't afford to have Thomas Partey as a mainstay in this team, because when he does become unreliable in the big moments, we miss him really, really badly. So I don't know. It's a tough one, but it's a massive risk for Arsenal to take. And I'm quite happy that Arsenal are taking risks, even like when you bring it to the Kai Havertz thing and that, it's a massive risk because, the Partey thing in particular, he's one of your best players. You don't really want to move him on. The Kai Havertz one, he hasn't done well at Chelsea. It's a signing that's come out of the blue that nobody really wants. But I'm happy with both, because I am one fan that is quite happy to hold my club accountable if both of these things fail. The question is the rest of the fan base happy to hold them accountable? And the funny thing is, we're seeing a lot of extremely pro Arteta fans that are up in arms about both of these possible deals. And it tells me everything I need to know, which is they're not fully confident in their manager.
But you know why Thomas Partey is one of our best players? He's a good player and great player on his day. It's because we haven't invested in midfield. Like, we haven't. Like, the only players that we brought in midfield since he's been there is like Sambi. Like, what's Sambi gonna do? So it's kind of
and Vieira.
Also Vieira, but like we bought Jorginho in January. Who's done a really good job, by the way, So I think Arsenal fans are a little bit too. It's like we're too like Xhaka and Partey got us here, so we have to keep them. But there's a clear ceiling with the two of them, and there always has been. And this is the best it's going to get for them, those two playing in the team. So I've always been okay with Xhaka leaving, always. Like, I think it's long enough, like time to move him on. But Thomas Partey is an interesting one because if he only has 2 years left on his deal, you have to make a decision. Nobody wants to extend him because you shouldn't at this point. You shouldn't extend him. He's done nothing to be extended beyond what he's done so far. And so now you have to decide whether or not you're willing to risk him moving on a free. Most Arsenal fans are always complaining about us not selling. Well, this is the time where you either decide to sell or not. Because usually when it's obvious that you need to sell a player, it's too late. That's the truth. Like once you're at the point where it's like, oh, we need to get rid of this guy, it's too late. You're not going to get a good fee for him. So I think Arsenal are just trying to figure out whether or not it's the right decision. And if Saudi Arabia are interested in him and we could get damn near everything that we paid for him, the 45 million, you sell. You sell and replace. Like you sell and replace. You're going to bring in Declan Rice, you bring in somebody else. You have Jorginho, you have a couple other midfielders. I don't see why it's like we can't move forward without him. It's like at a certain point a player becomes completely overrated. Like, and I think he's gotten to the point where people feel like we have to have him in the team. This guy's never really available like when we really need him. And I wouldn't trust him in the big games next season anyway. So move him on, if you get a good fee, which it looks like we may get. So I don't see what the big deal is, but I also trust that when we take big risks, we get a lot from it. But I'm somebody that I don't flake out. Like I'm not overly positive or overly negative. Like I'm kind of like Brandon too. Like if it goes south, I'll call it out. But I trust that this is the right thing to do because like you're never going to get a better opportunity to get almost everything you paid for a player back that you don't trust 100%. Because I'm sorry, Mikel Arteta dropped Thomas Partey at the end of the season when we were in trouble. That to me, that says he doesn't trust him. So if you don't trust him, you might want to move him on. That's the truth. Like
I think this is a brilliant thing that Arsenal are doing. I think as Arsenal fans you should be encouraged because it shows that you guys are not sitting on your laurels and you guys are becoming more of a proactive club. For years, Arsenal, Man United, Liverpool at times, Chelsea at times, they've all done this thing where a player has maybe a good season or two, or the fans are really attached to that player. So they just stay around. They just hang around for the longest time. And when you're about to push into the next threshold, it's, well, we can't get rid of him because look what he did last season, or we can't get rid of him because the fans really like him, all these different things. And have they really contributed that much to where you are now? You can question that. So I think it's a good sign for Arsenal fans that you're going to become a more proactive club, more proactive in the transfer market, being more ruthless in the decisions that you make. And that can only yield, for me, success in this football game. I wish Man United were more like that over the last 10 years because we wouldn't have Phil Jones leaving in 2023. He would have left in 2018, 2015. Like, we wouldn't have all these players like a De Gea that are just hanging on. We don't even know if we can get rid of them or not. So yeah, Thomas Partey, brilliant player on his day. I think there is a chance to upgrade on him with Declan Rice. There's a chance to upgrade on him with buying a Lavia who can come in and develop to be, I think he's got a higher ceiling than Thomas Partey. So to become a better player, I'd be excited. But like, your team's actually moving forward and you can no longer, I can no longer question the Conky's ambition because they're showing it.
Look, I listen.
I do agree with that.
Go on, mate. Go on, Don.
Oh, is that just me? Oh, Terrace breaking up there. I do agree with that, but I do also hear what Brandon's saying about the Champions League experience. Because let's say you get rid of Partey, you bring in a Lavia. With that experience, that's not something you can teach. It's either you have it or you don't. Obviously, I know Jorginho was a Champions League winner at Chelsea, but losing someone like Partey when it comes to Champions League, I just checked it now. I think he's got 31 appearances in the Champions League. If I'm right, which is quite a lot. This is someone that knows the competition. I know it was back in Spain, but it's still the same principle. Do you know what I'm saying? But yeah, it is. I do feel like it's the right time to move him on, but I would say that it is a little bit detrimental to the Champions League side of things, just because the only players that you're going to have that experience is Jorginho, and who else in your squad?
Zinchenko and Jesus.
Zinchenko and Jesus, and even them, they weren't, Jesus, apart from that game at Madrid, I can't remember him being a star player in that competition, so yeah, it will be a big miss.
He scored a one goal.
Well, yeah. Champions. If you get Kai Havertz in, yeah, he's got Champions League experience. To be fair, he does turn up in the Champions League. That's one thing I'll give him. But I think overall, if you're looking at the bigger picture, with where you're looking to go and how you're looking to progress, I would say it's the right time. Like Jeff said, opportunities come now. Teams are interested. You don't know how Partey is going to be in the next year. His stocks can completely drop, and then it's a problem. Saudi might not even want to come in for him. So yeah, I think it's a good time, but it's all about who comes in to
You
You
replace
know
him.
what? We can't afford for him to have a Fabinho season on us. That's just the truth. And
Yeah.
like Arsenal know better than anybody else what this player is going to be like. If he has a Fabinho season on us, it doesn't matter what kind of Champions League experience he has. And I think experience sometimes can be overrated. I think you can overcompensate for experience with quality. And I still
But
think
Jess,
there's an
the thing is though, I
you're,
think
you're done.
watching Partey like towards the end of the season, I know he dropped off, but he looking at him, he did look like he was carrying something. In all honesty, he looked like he was carrying a bit of an injury.
He's carrying a lot right
point,
now.
I'm not giving him excuses because he did drop off, yeah, but I don't
But
think it's gonna
he always
be.
has a knock. Like, but that's another part of it. Is he always has a knock. There's always something going on. He either drops off physically or mentally at some point. He has complete head loss. Like for me, it's just like it's a no-brainer if you can get a good fee and replace. And there's still an opportunity to bring in another Champions League level player in a different position. Because I still think we're in for Cancelo. That would take somebody else that's been in the Champions League. I think we completely overrate experience sometimes. Sometimes you just need really good players that are available and have a little bit of something about them.
Yeah,
And right
that's
now,
Yeah,
I just wanted to. Oh, go on.
I was going to say,
sorry, Tel. Sorry, that's the thing. You know, they always say the best ability is availability. Like, I'll give you another example, right? If you look at Liverpool, Thiago is Liverpool's best midfielder, hands down. But the guy's never available. And Thomas Partey is very much the same thing. He's available for when it doesn't really matter in the season. But when it does matter, like we see towards the back end of last season, you know, he's dropping stinkers or he's injured or he's not 100% fit. I'd rather have a player who's going to guarantee me, you know, starting week in, week out and similar performances rather than Thomas Partey lying around, you know what I mean?
I hear you on that, but equally, in terms of his replacement is going to be Declan Rice. Been saying this since February. Declan Rice is better than Thomas Partey in every single area of the football pitch. He's a better footballer. He's a more reliable footballer. He's a better leader. I think he's more adaptive in different positions. Partey's very good. Declan Rice is the level above him. Would it be brilliant to be able to keep hold of both of them? But who knows what's gone on behind the scenes as well, in terms of, I think your manager is furious with how he was probably your worst performer in those 4 games where the season fell away. But he is meant to be, he's your most experienced player outside of Gabriel Jesus. He's the man you expect to step up and be one of your team's leaders. And maybe, just maybe, Arteta saw characteristics, behavior, maybe a shying away, maybe a cowardice. And I'm not saying as him as a man outside of football. I'm talking purely him as a professional athlete. These things happen to people at times. Some people cannot step up in moments of adversity. You saw what Rodri did for City in the back end of the season, what Gundogan did for City in the back end of the season. Now, when they're all playing to the peak of their powers, there's not much to differentiate them all. But this is why I've said on many shows, this is the difference between why I won't put Harry Kane in the same category as Aguero, Rooney, Drogba, Henry, because we saw what those guys did in multiple finals, semi-finals, and clutch games in title races year in, year out. Those goals in those periods are worth 100 goals in games that led to nothing. In the end, they're worth a lot more because the pressure that's on those games. If you're never in those high-pressure games or in those high-pressure moments, we have no idea how you cope in them, so you can't be judged. It's like when we see players that are at Crystal Palace balling out and we're like, they're so much better than our guys. Have you seen Joe Bloggs in an Arsenal kit dribbling up against a low block 30 games of the season, and then you're in a title race for the last 6 games? And after, have you seen that player in that environment? You haven't yet. And it's testing people in that environment that really counts. But we've got some super chats here on this. First